Good afternoon and welcome to the closing reception and awards for the 2022 Case Festival at Jackson State. My name is Robbie Luckett. I'm professor of history and director of the Margaret Walker Center. Thank you all so much for being here today. And I just want to begin by letting us give a round of applause to the incredible student presentations we had all day long today. They were absolutely amazing. We have been lucky enough at the Margaret Walker Center to host the Creative Arts and Scholarly Engagement Festival for 16 years. And over that time, the Mississippi Arts Commission has been a wonderful supporter of this event, and we are grateful again this year for their generosity. In addition to the Mississippi Arts Commission, the Greater Jackson Arts Council has also supported the Case Festival these number of years. And we have had, even in the context of a pandemic, wonderful student conferences highlighting and showcasing the work of these young scholars and artists. We've also been lucky enough this year to have some really incredible plenary sessions. All of the plenary sessions, including today's awards, will be available still for you to go back and view on the Margaret Walker Center Facebook and YouTube pages, and we hope you will, and we hope that you will share those. Now, to begin our closing awards and reception, I invite the JSU String Ensemble with Isaiah Ambrose on violin, Kaiden Aloise Smith on violin, Darren Smith on violin, Monet Spencer on violin, Stephanie Hughes on viola, and Dorian Bruce on bassoon to perform Adoration by Florence Price. So grateful for such talented students. Thank you to the JSU String Ensemble for being here. And as they depart, I invite Tyler Dennis on the violin to perform Courant from Partita No. 1 in B minor by Bach. Tyler. Thank you, Tyler. Thank you to the JSU String Ensemble. Just a little more light in here. That was wonderful, and another example of kind of the excellence in the arts that we have here at Jackson State and throughout our community. Again, I'm thankful for all of the young people who participated in the Case Festival this year. I also want to offer a special word of thanks to the faculty and scholars who showed up to moderate these sessions and to give you such valuable feedback. Thank you guys for being here and participating in it as well. And the staff of the Margaret Walker Center. We are few but proud and mighty, and without them, none of this would have happened. You saw them throughout today, and I'm grateful for all of them. We have an amazing team. The Margaret Walker Center itself is a Black Studies Research Center, museum, and archive that was founded in 1968 by Margaret Walker while she was on the faculty here at Jackson State as an institute for the study of the history, life, and culture of Black people. We continue the work and legacy of Margaret Walker through a number of avenues, including conferences like this. And she hosted some of the first conferences on the topic of Black studies at Jackson State, including the National Evaluative Conference on Black Studies and the 1973 Phillis Wheatley Poetry Festival, which we will be honoring with the 50th commemoration in November of 2023. We also are pleased to bring public programs like the Case Festival and exhibits to Jackson State on a regular basis. Those exhibits over the better part of the last decade have featured one of the great activists, artists, scholars in the history of the state of Mississippi, Dr. Doris Derby, who became a good friend to us at the Margaret Walker Center and to many people at Jackson State. Dr. Derby battled cancer for many years, and she just passed away roughly a week ago. Part of our ceremony tonight, including the Margaret Walker Award, also is to deliver the Doris Derby Social Justice and Visual Arts Award, something that she endowed here at the Margaret Walker Center. Before we give those awards and honor the recipient of the Doris Derby Award for the first time since Dr. Derby's passing, I've invited a few of my friends and colleagues here to share a few words about their experiences and relationships with Dr. Derby. And they are going to come down. I'm going to call them to say a few things. I see Miss Angela Stewart, our archivist at the Margaret Walker Center. I'm going to invite her down first to say a few things. Ms. Stewart, if you would come join us and share a little bit about Dr. Derby.
Thank you, Dr. Luckett. As he mentioned, I'm Angela Stewart, the archivist at the Margaret Walker Center. And I first want to say a couple of personal things about Dr. Derby. In 2017, we hosted the Fair Street exhibit of Dr. Derby's. And I walked into Johnson Hall Art Gallery, and I looked at a photograph, and I went, and I looked again, and then I said, that's my dad. She had actually taken a photograph of my dad and a very good friend of his, George Davenport, as they attended a meeting here in Jackson. In addition to working with Margaret Walker at the Institute, she was also active with the development of Head Start in Mississippi, as was my father. So that may have been the meeting that she was capturing then. So I told her, I said, that's my dad you have there. And I found something someone said about her photographs, that she caught people as they were. And she wanted you to be able to see them as they were. And that is what I appreciated about that photograph. I had the opportunity to talk to Miss Pernita Welch. She and Dr. Derby pledged Zeta Phi Beta here in Jackson together. And she talked about how Dr. Derby enlightened them and told them about all the wonderful things they could do in terms of highlighting African-American studies and art in Mississippi. And then in my job as archivist at the Margaret Walker Center, I was looking at some photographs. Dr. Derby actually worked with Margaret Walker in putting together the National Evaluative Conference on Black Studies. She attended as a coordinator and a participant, and there's a wonderful photograph of her with the actor Ossie Davis, who also presented in that program. But more than that, she became, as Dr. Luckett said, more than a friend, but a supporter. someone who loved students, which is what her job was at Georgia State. She was over, African-American student affairs at Georgia State. Last year, the only time she got to present the award herself, she had originally talked about just giving it to one person, and she ended up making sure everyone who presented last year got a financial award. But I want to share, since this is the Creative Arts Festival, she also wrote poetry. And I didn't realize this until I reached out to someone who had done some research at the Margaret Walker Center on Dr. Derby and is putting out a Black Arts Movement anthology. So Earth Child by Dr. Doris Derby. Earth Child, fear not. Your rags, your mirror, your beautiful blackness, clothed in the pearl blue skies, golden sun, green leaves of our pregnant mother. We and the beautiful brown, black, red earth are one. And that's my memories of Dr. Doris Derby. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stewart. I will just note that in addition to the Visual Arts and Social Justice Award that Dr. Derby endowed, she endowed a second award here at the Margaret Walker Center that includes the For My People Legacy Award. And Dr. Derby considered herself the legacy of a long line of activists and artists in her family. And the For My People Award is named for Margaret Walker's most famous poem and book of poetry by the same name. And so we started giving the Doris Derby For My People Legacy Award 2 years ago. This year was our second year to do it. Before she passed away, I talked to her several times about the future of the award. And she was adamant that at this coming year's For My People Awards ceremony, which will happen in January of 2023, so make plans to attend and be here, that Miss Angela Stewart be the next recipient of the Doris Derby Award. And so grateful for that. I had the pleasure of visiting with Dr. Derby in January of this year, and Dr. Thomas Curson joined me for that. And I believe Dr. Curson is here, and I'm going to invite him down to say a few words about Dr. Derby as well. Please don't.
Well, I study community, and I also am a hippie child, lived in a commune. And over the years and decades, there's a difference between ideology and saying things and being very passionate about just saying things and saying the right things to the right people. But there's something more if you are steely-eyed and pragmatic and you leap to the edge of things, knowing that there might be risk and harm for yourself and your family. And this is Dr. Derby for me, is that she was more pragmatic about finding solutions and empowering people than just saying things. That she was willing to put herself at risk, put herself on the edge, and also try to realize in this world a beloved community, something Josiah Royce had talked about in the early 1900s, and that Martin Luther King expanded upon. She wanted to take that ideal and make it very pragmatic. And so when I looked at some of the stuff that she had done in the 60s, and as many of you know, she was involved with Poor People's Corporation, which became Liberty House, and then also other things that she was involved with, she was the right person at the right time. She, along with Jesse Morris, wanted to find a practical solution. They had little time for people who were talking all this highfalutin language and whatever, and saying these various things that really affected no change. So she wanted to be a change agent, but she wanted to be an effective one. And so I think one of the things that I've learned from her and then I want to pass on to you, is if you too want to be that change agent, be passionate, be exacting, sometimes to the point where your sole focus is to do that very thing, and that's the most important thing in your life. And so every time she stepped into something, that was the most important thing in her life at that point. So I was deeply saddened with her passing, but I know that many people loved her, and her photographs, her poems, and various things like that are still here with us. And I should say, as a final note, one of the things that Robbie and I are looking at is we are on a grant, taking some of those pictures that haven't been seen before, I think. And I sat with her. That was excruciating, going over these pictures, which ones should be included, which ones shouldn't be. But that will be an online exhibit here in the near future for all people to see. And it's going to be dealing with Liberty House. Thank you.
Yeah, the exhibit Tom's working on will be the last exhibit of Dr. Derby's work that we produced here at Jackson State. But by my count, we produced 5 over the past 8 years. And that includes a remarkable collection of photographs of the aftermath of the 1970 police shootings and the Gibbs Green tragedy at Jackson State, when Philip Lafayette Gibbs and James Earl Green were murdered in a rampage of police gunfire over 28 seconds, more than 500 rounds of ammunition into a women's dormitory. Those 60 images that we produced and created that exhibit are now traveling and will be this next year at their first stop at the University of Alabama Art Gallery. And I'm very proud about that exhibit. And our key collaborator on that project with Dr. Derby was Professor Mark Guile in the art department, an associate professor of photography. And I'm going to invite Mark down to say a few words now.
Well, yeah, I did know Dr. Derby for most of those shows, of the 5 shows that we produced here at Jackson State, and a lot of them we hosted in the art department in Johnson Hall. And so I kind of know Dr. Derby primarily as a photographer, but also as an artist. She was a painter, she was a poet, she was an amazing photographer. And she recently published a book, which I encourage you all to get a hold of. Dr. Doris Derby, A Civil Rights Journey, published by Mac Books last year. And it's a retrospective of her photography. And in the back of it, they list 32 organizations that were active in Mississippi during the 1960s. And she was directly involved in almost half of them, over a dozen, either working for them, either volunteering for them, documenting them with her camera. And when you look at those photographs, they are so amazing, because when you look at a photograph, you can see the relationship of the photographer to the subject and whether there's trust or not. And in those photographs, you see that trust that Dr. Derby developed. And as an artist, she knew that art could describe power structures in a way that nothing else can. And that's why art is so dangerous. And she knew that. And she also knew that art can describe a new future, and can describe a different future, and can describe change in a way that nothing else could. And so there was a way that she kind of brought together her activism and art to the point where they weren't separable. And I believe her archive of photographs is probably one of the most complete of those organizations, those 32 organizations that she either documented or worked with, and the 13 that she worked really closely with. And she did everything. She was here from 1963 to 1972 in Mississippi. It seemed like she did the work of being here for 30 years. She was everywhere. She even went to Woodstock and sold unsold wares from the Liberty House. She was so dedicated to Mississippi in the 9 years that she was here. And as you leave Tougaloo College, which she also worked at, she also taught art in our art department at Jackson State. She did everything. But as you're leaving Tougaloo, There's a white house there. Right as you leave the gates, has a small palm tree. That's where she stayed for part of her time in Mississippi. There was a dark room there, and that's where she printed some of her photographs. So whenever I see that house, I think of Dr. Derby. And finally, kind of in working with her, there was an event at the medical school, and I asked if I could borrow 12 of her photographs to show there. And she said, okay, but I want to be paid. And I said, well, there isn't a budget, but could we display them? And she said, well, I really need to be paid. And I impart that lesson to my students, that artwork is work, and it's work you need to be paid for. And several months later, Dr. Luckett said that Dr. Derby says you lost one of her photographs, and that it's missing. And I was scared of Dr. Derby. I think I still am. So I checked 12 out from the Margaret Walker Center, and then I checked the 12 back in. But I started thinking maybe I did. Maybe I need to call them and see if they found a photograph in the parking lot or something. So I got myself ready because she was coming to town to kind of explain myself. And when she came, she didn't say anything about it. She's going to be dearly missed. Thank you.
Dr. Derby meant a lot to us. Try to keep it together. I've been asked to be one of the people who speaks on the program on Tuesday at her funeral. And it's quite a program. I'm deeply honored, and I've been working on my remarks and what I'm going to say. And I thought I would share it with you guys, at least the draft of where I am now, and give you some sense of what she meant to me, because I loved her. She was one of my heroes. It was my great honor and privilege to call Dr. Doris Derby a mentor, colleague, collaborator, friend, and a shero. What's amazing in my mind is that I didn't meet Dr. Derby until 2014, and it feels like I knew her my entire life. It's hard for me to imagine a time when she wasn't in my life or in the life of the Margaret Walker Center. Everyone who knew and loved her like I did, we all understand that she was intentional about being present in the lives of the people she cared about. And let me tell you, as my friends and colleagues here will tell you, she could occupy a lot of space in your life. and she was, again, intentional about that. We met for the first time ahead of the 50th anniversary of Freedom Summer. She was working at the time with the Mississippi Department of Archives and History to donate some of her artifacts and images to what would become the Mississippi Civil Rights Museum. And they're there on display today, including one of her cameras that she used, the ubiquitous camera that she kept with her on her arm those 10 years, that decade that she spent in Mississippi. And she had an exhibit at the time in 2014 that was up in New Orleans and wanted it to come to Mississippi. She thought it would be perfect to come here in time for the Freedom Summer 50th anniversary. I jumped at that opportunity. As soon as I got the email, I was like, we're doing this. This is great. And as has been noted, over the last 8 years, I've been lucky enough to help curate 5 of her exhibitions at Jackson State and to produce them through the Margaret Walker Center. Over that time, Dr. Derby immersed herself as a central figure in my life. I visited her home several times, as has been mentioned, and I had the good pleasure of breaking bread with her and her amazing husband, Bob Banks, a man I deeply admire and respect and send love to. I remember the first time I went to her house and got the full tour. And for the few of you who've been there, it's a full tour. I don't even know how you guess how many pictures she has in her house. 1 million? That's not even a joke, Tom, is it? Like 500,000? I don't know. It's a museum itself. And I ended up being there for more than 5 hours the first time I visited her. I was not expecting that. The most amazing thing about Dr. Derby was her mind. It felt like she could remember nearly every person and every photo that she had taken and tell you a story about them. And if she didn't, she might look at a picture long enough and have some kind of epiphany and have to get something to write down to who that person was that she was looking at. And as Mark said to me after she passed away, and as you just heard him say, she may have been the single most prolific photographer of the modern civil rights movement in Mississippi in the 1960s. I mean, every second of every day, I think, Mark, you said that her camera was an extension of her arm. It's amazing what she was able to capture during that time. Of all the things we lost when Dr. Derby passed away, losing her memory and knowledge is one of the most tragic things. I'm grateful, though, that I had the opportunity to interview her this past year as part of an oral history project for the Mississippi Arts Commission on folk life in the civil rights movement in Mississippi, something you can find an article I wrote on the Mississippi Arts Commission website under their folk life in the civil rights movement project. And this coming Tuesday night at 6 p.m. at the Kofo Center, we'll be doing a panel on folk life in the civil rights movement. I'll be talking more about Dr. Derby. I'll be flying back from her funeral that afternoon in time for the talk. Over the course of that interview, we talked about her entire life, what brought her to Mississippi in 1963 and into the movement and with SNCC in 1961. What led her to academia, to Georgia State. We talked about her family, her art, and her activism. We talked about her time working at Jackson State for Margaret Walker and the Black Studies Institute, and that beautiful picture we have of her on the Institute staff standing behind Margaret Walker. We talked about the images she took of the aftermath of the 1970 police murders on our campus, an exhibit, as I mentioned, that is traveling the country now, or will be soon. We talked for so long, we had to do a second round of that oral history, and it came out to over 3 hours long. And I'm grateful that we have that recorded. We brought her and Bob to Jackson State for gallery talks for every exhibit of hers that we hosted, and even in the midst of the pandemic. And as she battled this terrible disease of cancer, she joined us for Zoom panels and for vibrant online discussions. I'll never forget, and some of you remember well, the 2020 Association of African American Museums Conference, which I chaired, but had to be online because of COVID. It was a virtual conference. We had a Zoom reception with a DJ, and Dr. Derby was the hit of the party, dancing the night away in her little square on the Zoom screen so that everybody could see her. It was amazing. I love Dr. Doris Derby. I miss her greatly. I miss her phone calls and her voice. And in fact, if you ever talk to Dr. Derby on the phone or you got a call from her, you better not have anything else to do, because you needed to square away some time just to talk to her. Anybody who ever spent time on the phone or engaging with her knew that those conversations were going to be engaged and long. You didn't have a quick chat with Dr. Derby. She was demanding but loving, serious but joyful, committed to justice and to her family and friends. I'm proud of what she's done for the center, these gifts that will total in her will to roughly $100,000 to the Margaret Walker Center. What an incredible legacy for us. And so these awards that we'll give today, the Doris Derby Social Justice and Visual Arts Awards, and the For My People Doris Derby Legacy Awards, are part of that. She was a role model for me, and like I said, a shero. Dr. Derby has a quote on the wall of the Mississippi Civil Rights Museum. Quote, "People in the movement generally were an extended family of adopted brothers and sisters, cousins and friends who learned from each other and who were committed to each other and to the struggle. The work, commitment, joy, songs, battles, tragedies, strategizing, gains, losses, and the horrors of violence and intimidation glued us together, and the circle kept getting bigger. As in the African American tradition, there was always room for more." I'll be forever grateful that she made room for me in her circle. And I miss her very much. Thank you, guys. Okay, with that said, and without further ado, I now have the pleasure of presenting the Doris Derby Social Justice and Visual Arts Award. Ms. Stewart alluded to this when she first came up with the idea of giving this award at the Case Festival. We gave it for the first time last year. The idea was that it would go to one person and be a cash award. Dr. Derby was so enthusiastic about it that she decided, no, you know what? Let's give 3 awards this year. And once again this year, she was hopeful before she passed away, one of the last times I talked to her, that we would be able to give multiple awards. And I am grateful that we will be able to do so today. The first recipient of this year's Doris Derby Visual Arts and Social Justice Award, an award of $300. I'm very proud to say goes to one of my very own students, Tyler Duncan, for his work, The Seeds Planted. Come here, Tyler. You gotta come all the way around here because I got to see you on the screen. People are watching you online.
Hi.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, man. And we'll have you come by the center and we'll make sure that you get that money.
Yes, sir.
All right. The next recipient of the Doris Derby Visual Arts and Social Justice Award is Jasmine Johnson, Finding Your Photographic Vision. Jasmine. Good job. Congratulations. You got to wave to yeah, we'll get you. There she is. And there's your award. Come by the Margaret Walker Center and we'll get you your award as well. That is also a $300 prize. I should say all of their artwork is on display in the Margaret Walker Center in Air Hall. I hope we'll have it for a couple more days next week before y'all come and take it down. But if you can, come by and check out the art. And it is paired with some photographs from Dr. Derby's collection that she donated to us. And so you'll get to see them side by side. The third award goes to a young woman who was unable to be with us today, but sent us a wonderful presentation, including a little dance that I don't believe she's here in attendance, but we are going to honor her as well with another $300 Doris Derby Visual Arts and Social Justice Award. And that goes to Juliana Rincon for her work, Music Across the African Diaspora. Let's have a round of applause for Juliana. And we'll make sure that this gets to her. Okay, that brings us to the last part of our program before the reception. And that's the presentation of the annual Margaret Walker Award. Now, the Margaret Walker Award was endowed by an anonymous donor to be a $1,000 prize to the best essay annually by a Jackson State student on, quote, the Black experience in the American South, unquote. That's pretty broad. And we've had a broad array of winners in the past. We've had people write historical essays. We have had people write autobiographical accounts. We've had creative writing. We've had literary analysis win the Margaret Walker Award. And so we cast a wide net. I, every year, ask 3 members of the staff and faculty to serve anonymously as judges. They don't know who each other are. They read the essays. The essays also are removed of all identifiers of who wrote the essays, so try to remove as much bias as I can from the process so that they don't know who wrote the essays in case they might be one of their students or someone they're acquainted with on campus. They send me their rankings of their of the essays they read, and from there we tabulate who wins the annual Margaret Walker Award. I can tell you this year it was incredibly close. There were 7 different essays that received a vote from the 3 judges for the Margaret Walker Award. And we're going to honor each of those people as our 7 finalists, as well as our award winner. And to begin, I would like to recognize with a special award recognition, Jada Bronson for her work, The History of Music, The Southern Influence, as one of our finalists. Is Jada here? Congratulations, Jada. You want to say hello to everybody online who's watching? All right. The next 2 recipients co-wrote their piece, and with a special award recognition for their work Unpeacefully Resting, I invite Mia Thompson and Shirley Collins. Congratulations. Thank you all so much. Mia, I believe that goes like that. Yes. And you can say hi to your. Hi. All right. Our next Margaret Walker Award finalist for her piece, Jesus and Joe, McKenna Light. Congratulations. Thanks for coming. Want to recognize as a Margaret Walker Award finalist for her piece, When Skin Color and Gender Determine Worth, Chris Winter. Is Chris here? I have Chris in my class so I can make sure that she gets this. Now, that brings us to the runner-up and to the winner. A half a point separated the runner-up and winner. This was very, very close. The Margaret Walker Award runner-up for her work, Reclaiming My Womb, Victoria Washington. Good job. It was so close. Congratulations. All right. Now we need the band back in here for the drum roll. This year's winner of the $1,000 Margaret Walker Award for her work, Southern Hospitality, is Ayanna Sobers. Okay, well, I guess Ayanna had to go home. We will make sure she finds out and receives this award. With that, that brings us to a close. Again, let me thank the Mississippi Arts Commission, the Greater Jackson Arts Council, and all of you for being here and for supporting this year's Case Festival. I hope you'll make plans to join us for next year's Case Festival in April of 2023, as we'll be back here on the campus of Jackson State. And I hope that you will continue to keep the family of Dr. Doris Derby in your hearts, prayers, and mind over the next few days as we come to the celebration of her life on Tuesday. Please join us now for a small reception just outside these doors. Thanks again to the staff of the Margaret Walker Center, and thanks to the faculty who showed up and participated as moderators of these. And one last round of applause for all of you for the work that you did.